Agriculture. Thank you to our judges today, Shelley Lukasiewicz from CPA Saskatchewan, Kate Lockhart from MCO, Nick Kochar from Refresh, Alana Cook from the Government of Saskatchewan, Kim McConnell from AdFarm, Michael Holford from Farm Credit Canada, Tiffany Stevenson from the Ministry of Agriculture, and Mohammed Tahor Shizi from the Department of Bioresource Policy, Business and Economics, and the College of Agriculture and Bioresources. Competitors today will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, the judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask the presenters their desired questions. The volunteer timekeeper will show time cards at various intervals to indicate the remaining time and will stop any speaker who exceeds the maximum time limit. No questions, comments, cell phones, or picture taking will be permitted from the audience at any given time. The audience will only be permitted to applaud following the question and answer period. The audience is also banned from any material that bears the name or symbol of a competing university. And we also ask that the audience exit the room immediately following the question and answer period. You can begin whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Kirsten. These are my colleagues Alex and Mark, and together we make Almaty Consulting. We are so proud to be here today, Mr. Hiller, to present to you our recommendations, which we believe is the best solution for you moving forward.
I quite often find myself observing young people believing the first thing that they hear. This is a problem, this needs to stop, and we believe that through the implementation of our recommendation, you will dispel the myths that are being spread by the fast food companies, and you will get young, talented people living in Saskatchewan excited again about career opportunities in the agricultural industry.
Now, Mr. Hiller, before we move forward with our recommendations, we'd like to identify to you the two primary issues that we found for you moving forwards. The first of all being the misconceptions of antibiotics and whole growth hormones used in the beef industry. So this has become a problem with public perception changing through advertising campaigns from fast food industries, identifying that they're not using hormones or any antibiotics in their beef to gain their competitive advantage. The second is attracting youth to new agricultural jobs in Saskatchewan. So it's a booming industry representing a large portion of your GDP here in Saskatchewan as well as in Canada. However, you're having trouble sourcing new employment opportunities or new employees for the future. Now, underlying both these issues, there are some primary issues that we felt we needed to outline for you today. Going forward with the misconceptions of antibiotics in the beef industry, the two separate issues or secondary issues we identified for you today are the fast food industry creating those myths amongst the public. So that's again those A&W campaigns as well as their competition, looking to try and get that competitive edge by saying that they're not using hormones or any hormones in their beef products for their burgers, as well as their large marketing budget. So you've outlined today for us a budget of $500,000, to which we are proud to say that we have allocated far less than what you requested for the $500,000. However, it may be tough to compete with the large marketing budget of said fast food conglomerates. Lastly, so moving forward to the jobs in the agricultural industry. So that's the emerging workforce sees the industry as just traditional farmers, when really there are a numerous amount or a large amount of individuals who make up the supply chain and the value creation through farming. Secondly, farming is just not seen as sexy. As I mentioned, so they are the traditional farmers. We see these people working on barns with their cows and their cattle, but we really don't see the business professionals that go into the industry and really create the value moving forward. So to break down an analysis for you, we broke it down into political, economic, sociocultural, technological, legal, and environmental concerns, or just everything surrounding the industry as a whole at this time. So to begin with the political, so the government regulation of the industry through the Canadian Food Inspections Agency. So it is a regulated industry with all ranchers, all 63,000 ranchers in Canada having to abide by the same standards which are deemed safe. This includes the growth hormones as well as the antibiotics that are used in the cattle today. As well as you have that government backing to promote agricultural jobs in Saskatchewan that I've been stressing so much. So the government of Saskatchewan is really looking to invest and find the best of these new graduates moving forward to ensure their industry is successful. And then, so the government as well has that desire to recruit and retain the province's best graduates, sourcing the best of the best, as I mentioned, coming from all over Saskatchewan or Canada as a whole to really ensure that the agricultural industry thrives.
In terms of the economic aspects, the agricultural industry, and more specifically the beef industry, is so big in Saskatchewan. So also including that, you're facing the fast food industry, which is really minimizing and going against the beef industry, saying that antibiotics are bad. They have, A&W has their Better Beef campaign going on, and they have a huge marketing budget. And it's not just the one A&W chain, it's all these different fast food companies. So in terms of Canada, in terms of Saskatchewan, Saskatchewan raises 30% of Canada's beef. So this is a huge industry, and it's really increasing the GDP in this province. In addition, the agricultural industry as a whole accounts for 6.7% of Canada's GDP. And in addition, so Saskatchewan has a heavy reliance on the beef industry as well. And then moving into the socio-cultural aspects, so in Canada, the employment in the agricultural industry counts for 2.2 million people. This is huge, and we really want to promote this and attract more talented individuals. In addition, in Saskatchewan, Canada as a whole, there's over 60,000 raising beef in this country, and you also have a very diverse farming sector. So there's small, medium, and large farmers and suppliers out there. In addition, you are facing that public misinformation on the beef industry, specifically with antibiotics, and we really want to minimize this. This is a huge problem for you going forward, and we really want people to understand that Canadian beef is actually good for you. Even if there is antibiotics, there's a reason for that antibiotics, and it is small, and on a small scale, it doesn't really affect the health of humans. In addition, in terms of the technological aspects, Saskatchewan is a really large research hub for Canadian beef. So even though you aren't the largest producers of it, Alberta actually has the largest share, you do have that research going on. So we really want to attract that talent so you can promote that. In addition, the beef hormones, it does grow sustainable, healthy beef. And the technological advances in the agricultural industry is very necessary to have it going forward.
Now, moving forward to the legal aspects surrounding the beef and the agricultural industry. So the beef industry, as I mentioned prior, is regulated by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. However, the Saskatchewan beef adheres to all the regulations, as well as it is, as I'll mention later, environmentally sustainable way to raise the beef cattle. Now, the one legal issue that we came up with, or that could be a high risk for you, is the potential legal tension and pushback if you're very aggressive against these large fast food chains. So there could be legal lawsuits or anything if you're belittling the image or the name of companies such as A&W and their competition. Secondly, so for environmental concerns and analysis, so the hormone-raised beef produces with fewer land. So you're able to maximize the land, or minimize the amount of land, and maximize efficiency by producing the beef with hormones and antibiotics. You're also able to grow this cattle in areas where other agricultural industries may not be able to grow. So really maximizing that portion, getting as many cattle on the land as getting as much cattle on as little land as possible is really critical. And then as well, it was sort of hypocritical to note that Chipotle itself, while it advertises its hormone-free beef, this is sort of an honest saying itself, but they do source from Montana and various other locations and import it into Canada. So this creates an unnecessary environmental or carbon emissions or carbon footprint, whereas if you were to just raise the beef in Saskatchewan and distribute it throughout Canada as well.
So Mr. Hiller, looking at your competition, we identified a sensitive issue in that your competition is also a customer, in the sense that in terms of communicating with the public, your customer, the fast food restaurants, are communicating one thing about hormones and genetically modified beef, whereas you are trying to communicate a different one. So there's difficulty in balancing that. Alex mentioned the potential of legal pushback. We thought that one of the alternatives you could pursue is an aggressive marketing campaign against them, saying A&W is wrong, or something like that, or A&W is lying. But we thought that that would not be a very, very intelligent strategy, because you need that relationship. It's an important connection that your company has with your customer, and we think that you should build and foster that. Also, taking away jobs from Canadians, and by that we mean that Alex alluded to it earlier. Sorry, that in order to meet their standards that they're marketing without the genetically modified beef products, they're going elsewhere. They're going and importing beef from Australia, from the United States, when they don't need to do that, because in Saskatchewan there's a huge beef industry, as well as in other areas in Canada. So number one, you're taking jobs away from Canadian farmers and in the agricultural industry, and you're also producing unnecessary carbon emissions. And lastly, what they're really doing is, it's a marketing ploy that they're doing. They're leveraging people's fear of additives in their food. It's a big issue right now. People are concerned about that. People are concerned about their health, and rightly so. But in this case, it isn't true. As Kirsten mentioned, the amount of antibiotics that are used in raising cattle does not affect human health. So really, they're just using this as a marketing ploy to really sell more burgers.
So we did a customer segment of that 18 to 30-year-olds, and we wanted to call it the new heart. So we're specifically focusing on the Saskatchewan market. So this is really differentiating from those fast food chains. Usually they have a nationally broad marketing, but we're just really focusing on that Saskatchewan base of those young people. So here are some characteristics we've created. They're potentially unaware of the variety of opportunities in the agricultural industry. As Alex was saying, they're kind of desiring a sexy career path, and right now there's a stereotype image of just a farmer on a field raising those beef, and we really want to dispel this. There's traders of equipment, there's lots of other different varieties, there's legal aspects to this, and we really want to be able to push this and get that information known out to the talented youth in Saskatchewan. In addition, this new herd is also very easily influenced by their peers. So their peers and also advertisements as well. So when A&W is really pushing that they have a better beef, other than different their personal rivals, this is really influencing on these young people that this beef that has that small amounts of antibiotics isn't good for them, and this is false. In addition, they're heavy users of technology, so they're really on social media. They use their computer to research things. They're very tech savvy. In addition, they have a primary purchasing criteria, mostly concerned with price. If they're in a Safeway, they're looking at 2 different types of beef, they're probably going to go for the cheaper option as opposed to a higher option. In addition, so for our recommendation today, we want to really achieve your 2 objectives. So your first one, dispelling those myths that we talked about that the fast food industry is going towards. In addition, attracting that talent in the Saskatchewan market of those young people to really get them into the beef and the agricultural industry and have that talent there. So these 2 objectives, they're going to equal our 1 recommendation today into an integrated marketing strategy that we call the Well-Fed Nation.
So instead of running 2 different marketing campaigns to achieve your goals, as Kirsten was mentioning, we're going to run an integrated marketing strategy that's going to achieve both your goals with 1 campaign. So what is this going to look like? It's all going to be based around what we call the cattle crowd, or different stakeholders, or different individuals or groups of people involved in the agricultural supply chain to create the product. So the first one we named the barn boys. These are the traditional farmers. These are what people associate with the agricultural industry, and they're a key stakeholder. They still exist. They're still integral to the process. So they're one of the people that we're going to use in the marketing campaign. The second is agricultural geniuses, and what we mean by this are the scientifically gifted people who are developing the antibiotics and the different technological advances to feed more people in Saskatchewan, to feed more people in Canada, and to feed more people worldwide. Thirdly, we named this group Wheels and Deals, and this is sort of trying to get at the lack of sexiness in the agricultural industry. So what we mean by this are people who are facilitating deals between different parties along the supply chain, negotiating contracts, and if say someone grew up in Saskatchewan and they want to be a stockbroker in Toronto, when really they can do it at home, get the same amount of negotiation, sort of facilitating deals right here and doing good for their province and their country. And lastly, we have now we have the herders, which are people just along the supply chain, logistics facilitators who are moving products. They're essential to it, and we felt that we needed to include them in your marketing campaign. And lastly, the safety blankets. And this is really integral to communicating that the antibiotics that are used in beef are not harmful to your health. So we think of this as the regulators, the people who are checking over the safety of the products and really ensuring that if you eat the product, you're going to be healthy tomorrow. So we named how is this all going to look? We broke it down into three different parts to the marketing campaign, starting with a YouTube campaign, followed by talent recruitment, and a social media campaign that we named Buzz, Buzz, Buzz. So the YouTube campaign. It's going to be paid advertisements like you're used to seeing at the beginning of YouTube videos, with representatives of all the stakeholders that I just mentioned on the previous slide, and local celebrity involvement. When we were thinking, what do people in Saskatchewan love? They love the riders, so we were thinking a Rough Riders player involved in the advertisement process, and also promoting the hashtag #OurBeefOurWay. So what is this video going to look like? It's going to start with Saskatchewan Rough Riders player sitting down, about to take a bite of this big, delicious burger. But before he does, we want it to be snapshots of all the individual stakeholders along the supply chain, the ones that we identified, with a backdrop photo of where they would be doing their work. So a person, the barn boy in the field, and so on and so forth, to really showcase their involvement. They'll maybe say a few words about what they do, and then at the very end, it's going to be the rider taking a bite of that burger. And we hope that really illustrates to people of Saskatchewan, to consumers, number one, all the different roles within the industry, and number two, all of the beef products at the end of the line are not harmful to them. So for talent recruitment, we thought of just billboard advertisements in high traffic areas, and that would just be a reflection of the video. This is all based on the video, so it would just be 6 of the people together, crossing their arms, just showing that it's more than just the traditional farmer. Also, yeah, reinforcing the representatives in the eyes of the public, and again, that hashtag. And this will all be accompanied by a social media campaign, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we're thinking of featuring each of these individuals, each of these representatives with the bio, what they do, with links to more about their profession, with links to more about the safety hazards, the proposed safety hazards, the false ones, to really, say someone really wants to be a Wheels and Deals, so they can see on the Instagram what's featured that day, read more about it, and potentially look into a career in that field, as I was just mentioning.
Okay, so just as a brief timeline for you here. So immediately, what you can do as you leave today, or to promote the recommendation we have for you, the first step forward is to contact the advertising representatives. So these are all the individuals Mark was talking about that create the supply chain and the value creation in the industry itself. Contact that Rough Rider, that star, the main highlight of the advertising campaign. 6 weeks to 3 months from now, consider producing the advertisement video, as Mark mentioned, for the YouTube advertisements. This in turn can be used for the billboards as well as the social media campaign. And in 4 to 6 months, we're seeing implementation. So getting those images on the billboard, getting those paid advertisements out there. But how much will this all cost? So as a brief point right now, so the YouTube advertisement, we've allocated $100,000 for you today. The billboard advertisement at about $150,000 in key strategic places, such as outside the Riders Arena, totaling an average or a number of $386,000. So this is well below the $500,000 limit that was allocated to us today.
we just identified a few risks here for you. So one of them being that the fast food industry, they increase their advertisements, they really pump it up. So we really want to focus on that regional focus of Saskatchewan. They're probably going to be more on a national base, and we really want to hit home and target that new herd demographic. As well, there's difficulty dispelling those myths. So we really want to increase the importance on the agricultural masterminds in this segment, how they're really improving the technology in this area. And then finally, the YouTube reach is not large enough. So we did have our budget well under $500,000, so we could allocate more money towards those funds to really have an more aggressive marketing campaign. And then finally, we've created for you today our Achieving Excellence Scorecard based on our 3 criteria of prosperity, technology, and connections. So for connections, how we're going to really make those for you is we really want to be building that relationship with the new herd, that young demographic, as well going for new communication channels through social media. You haven't really tapped that before, and we really want to get into that. In addition, for prosperity, we want to reinvigorate the agricultural industry. We really want to make it prosperous going forward. It's such a huge part of your GDP, and we really want to be able to attract that young talent you have in the Saskatchewan market and get them in there. Finally, for technology, we want to create a method to facilitate that conversation with the consumers through social media, that young, influential demographic that we highlighted for you, really get them a conversation going through sponsored Instagram campaigns and YouTube videos. And that is our recommendation, and we are now open to any questions.
So you mentioned quite a heavy social media campaign, but you don't mention anything about having a website or something where consumers can just go to find information anytime, or because I mean a social media campaign is one thing, but not really having that online presence. Why did you choose not to also come and create that platform?
When we were thinking of this as just the marketing campaign, and we assumed that your existing website would include all of this material as well, and we didn't allocate any of our budget to that because we focused on that as more of the outward consumer-facing marketing campaign. So the existing website that you have at the Regional Services Board will include the material that we are communicating, that you will be communicating to the public.
So just a quick question. In order to get the new herd to follow, you need a few select cows to heed your message, the early adopter, who then becomes a brand fan and shares a good word. In a sentence, what would you say is that key message that's going to compel them to willingly share that this is a good, that they should follow suit and be part of that herd? And why should they believe you, I guess, is the other piece to that question.
We came up with the slogan, "Our beef, our way." So we really wanted to drive home that in Saskatchewan, we're proud to have the beef our way, having it local from Montana. So we were thinking of having like a Saskatchewan Rough Rider. That person is usually in the demographic age of 18 to 30. So they're really going to be that front face. People know their name, they know who they are, and saying that slogan, in Saskatchewan, we want our beef our way.
Just to clarify, are you asking what we would say to a potential representative, how we would get them to promote a career in agriculture, or what we would have them say to the public?
Well, both.
Okay.
We're talking to, again, our 18 to 30-year-old target, and we're saying you should heed the words, you should reject what you're hearing from the Dove and others, right? So what is it that we're going to say concisely?
I think in terms of, so specifically on crushing the myths about the beef.
Let's do
okay,
that.
so really emphasizing the science behind it, how it isn't harmful to humans, how it's just the result of smart people working together, trying to feed more people, trying to be more efficient in the industry, and trying to also, we mentioned a number of the environmental benefits, so all of those benefits and how really genetically modified products is improving the agricultural and the food industry rather than hindering it and hurting people.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your Buzz area of the initiative in terms of creating traction and really getting this off and running?
So the Buzz is all about our social media campaign. So as well, we allocated $18,000 of our budget to find that Rough Rider star, as well as 4 other key individuals working in the agricultural industry right now. So by getting those on board, and as well as the development of the billboard campaigns and the YouTube advertisements, really integrating that into the social media campaign, so using the same information that you're giving out to people outside or still on the web. So each week we were anticipating highlighting one of the key representatives, really what they do, what they love about the industry, and also trying to promote those logistics managers as well as the scientific geniuses who promote the hormones. Just get that clear that these products, even though they have hormones and antibiotics, are actually healthy for you and more efficient and environmentally friendly.
You mentioned that our target demographic, we need to stop them from believing everything they hear. How are we going to manage that? How does this campaign address that?
Because we're going to tell them something else. They've been hearing in A&W advertisements for the last few years about how they're selling better beef just because it doesn't have hormones or antibiotics. That isn't true. In order to put a hint of skepticism in their minds, we need to communicate the other side of that, because mass media typically doesn't communicate to everyday people that antibiotics and hormone injected beef is a good thing. So just showing them the other side, explaining to them why those types of things happen, and really, as I mentioned earlier, outlining the benefits for what it does for their province, for their country, and for the world at large.